Hey folks, it's Tom Cracker here. I'm going to just show you a few basics of card throwing for the Magician's Forum. So a little history on me. I learned to throw cards probably 1984. I saw some magician on TV. I think it was Ricky Jay. Of course, he doesn't show his technique, but just studying how the cards were flying, how his hand was throwing cards. I experimented with a bunch of different handlings of the cards. Tip of the finger, we'll go on that detail later. But I finally worked out what worked for me. And I ended up just practicing endless hours. And then I taught my younger brother how to throw cards. And we would have card battles. Each have about 2 or 3 decks of cards at 9, 10 years old. Throwing cards across the basement, sometimes throwing hard enough to draw blood. But that's not the goal. The main goal is just teaching you the basics of throwing cards. I cannot claim to be the most accurate, but we're going to try and aim for some small target here. You'll see a few cards stick in there, a few that don't. When you throw the cards, there's a very specific pattern, like arc, that the cards will fly the way that I throw the cards. The way some other magicians throw cards, some of them go a lot more straight. Ricky Smith Jr. is one of them. He has very good technique, he hits very straight, he's very accurate. My method, the cards will follow a specific arc. This distance in here, about 15 feet, it's a little too short to really see that curve, but there will be a few cards where you'll see I'm aiming towards the target, but the cards will go slightly off to the side. And it also depends on where you release the card. There's a lot of different things, factors that just fall into place. But we're going to just give a quick little demo. There we go. So you can see I'm actually hitting the foam. This is actually a harder foam that I found. And it happens to be just bouncing off. I don't know if you can see some marks in here. One did stick. I've stuck one in a ceiling tile before, so it just depends on your technique, the distance, the speed, the rotation of the card. But you can get them to stick in. If I go a little closer, you'll see like that. You can also get them to stick from 30 feet away. So what I end up doing is I experimented with a lot of different handlings of the card. I would put my finger on the tip and try to throw like this. You can get some spin, you get a little distance, but it's not quite as good as what I do my other methods. Now, I also experimented with the handling right here, this outer corner. I don't get as much control or accuracy. Finally, I ended up on my own discovery was finding this position. This happens to be very close to what some other magicians also do, but I discovered this at 8 years old just from watching some guy on TV. Okay. So what you're going to do is place the card in your fingertips and you rotate the card in so it's kind of touching your palm. And the first motion you're going to do is go real slow like this, and my arm's going to follow this path, and then release the card. Your hand is going to kind of flop through. You see your fingers will like flop around, but basically just releasing like this. So it's hard to show it in slow motion. I'll try to do a little slow motion video later. But the basic motion is, if I were to hold my hand here to block my arm, my wrist is doing this. So I'm starting here, my wrist is coming through this motion. Okay, so I'm kind of starting almost vertical, and then I rotate to horizontal. So that will get you a basic throw. I'll show you here, like that. And there you can see the little bit of a curve. So where you get the speed is with your arm thrusting into that direction. And I do a technique where when I'm releasing, my hand is actually pulling back really quick. So as I'm releasing, I'm like pulling back. It hurts your arm a little bit more, but it works for me. Ricky Smith Jr., he does a slightly different technique. I can't teach his technique because I don't know it. You can get his videos. But the way that I get a little more spin on what I'm doing for me, and it's just from thrusting out, and then my last second, my hand kind of pulls back. So then it's just getting that extra kick of spin. Of course, you just have to kind of figure out what really works for your arms. And then, depending on, some of these cards are warped too, that doesn't help them fly straight. But it's basically the technique. Okay, so we're going to try it again from a side view so you can see the angle here. And I'm just going to aim at this wall on the side. But my arm is coming out like this. So that's the basic technique for throwing cards. It does take a lot of practice. The way that I throw the cards, my forearm here does start to hurt. If I don't practice a lot, it'll start to hurt here and on my bicep a little bit. If you do it often enough, you build up the muscles in there and you really don't feel it. You can throw 10, 15 decks and not really notice it. But it just takes a lot of practice working up to that point. So I'm going to stop the video here and work on a slow motion video from the front and from the side. Okay, here's a few slow motion shots. So I hope that helps you understand some of the basic techniques of throwing cards, the handling, position of the card, the direction and angle of your arm, how it shows the projectile direction, the curve. You can see it from front and back to sideways. And basically it's just to show you how practicing that same move hundreds of times, thousands of times, you can develop the speed and the accuracy. So I hope you enjoyed watching some of this short video, and if you have questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you.